After a 2-week break, the New York Rangers thoroughly embarrassed themselves in an 8-2 loss to the Buffalo Sabres. Let's tear this team to shreds.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1254 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Schick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, yeah, hell of a start to the home stretch of the season here for the Rangers, right? You know, coming out of the Four Nations face-off, a lot of us, myself included, were hopeful, maybe even, believing that this 2-week break was going to do the Rangers a lot of good, that this has been a rough season, a lot of ups and downs, frankly, more downs than ups. It's been obviously something of a roller coaster, and this getting away from everything for a couple of weeks would be a good thing for these players and for those that actually competed in the Four Nations. Maybe that gets them going in some ways as well. And for anybody that was hoping that, thinking that, assuming that, well, we couldn't have been more wrong, could we? I mean, I know it's just one game, but this is as bad as you could possibly imagine for a team to respond. You've had 2 weeks to get yourself mentally, physically prepared to go in this game, and you go up against the record-wise worst team in the Eastern Conference, and they absolutely just lap you for an entire 60 minutes. They thoroughly embarrass you and kick you right out of their building, and the Rangers got exactly what they deserved in this game for that just absolutely dog bleep effort that we saw from this team. So here's what we're going to do today. You kind of have an idea already, but we're going to just try to be as practical as we possibly can, looking at this game, looking at where this team stands. I'm going to talk about why I think they should just sell right now. That's going to be one of the things that we talk about a little bit later in the episode. I'm going to call out really the entire team. I mean, off and on throughout the entire episode, but we're really going to take issue with what we saw from Igor Shesterkin and Adam Fox in this game here. And we're actually going to start by just going through as practically and as calmly as I possibly can why this was basically a reminder of who the New York Rangers are. They told us in this game in no uncertain terms. They basically gave us a reminder for any of us that were foolish enough to be optimistic and hopeful coming out of the Four Nations break. They gave us a very clear-cut and very painful reminder of exactly who this team is, what these players are, and what they have devolved into from what we saw last season to whatever's going on this season. So here's basically their greatest hits or their worst hits, call it whatever you want to call it. The Rangers, again, very clearly reminded us in this game that this is a team with no leadership. No leadership. There's 4 guys that wear a letter. They're nowhere to be found during this game, contributing anything even somewhat positive. Of course, we're talking about Kreider, Mika, Fox, Panarin. None of them did anything positive in this game. None of them looked dangerous. I mean, I know, yeah, okay. Kreider scored a goal. Mika scored a goal. So what? It doesn't excuse the brand of hockey that they played throughout the rest of this game. You just watch the way this team interacts with each other. The players interact with each other. Where's anybody with any kind of fire? Where's anybody with just some kind of look in their eyes where you can actually believe that these guys actually give a damn? It's just not there. Panarin, Mika, Kreider, Fox. Those are the guys wearing the letters. Those are the guys that are supposed to step up and lead the way. They did not do that. You watch the way these guys interact with each other. I mentioned that a second ago. Nobody's talking on the bench. Nobody's got any fire. Nobody's got any enthusiasm. I mean, JT Miller, where's he been? You know, he comes over and he's hellfire and brimstone, and this is a guy that's going to change the culture and everything. I'm not going to put it just on the one guy who just got back here, but I mean, he's nowhere to be found. Did he get dragged down to their level this quickly? This level of just playing lethargic, completely unpassionate hockey. Another thing that the Rangers reminded us of after this game, throughout this game and specifically in the post game, no accountability. There's no accountability. Igor Shesterkin, the media requested to speak with him after the game, and he refused to do so. Didn't show up, just left the building. This is the guy that's about to become the highest paid goalie in the history of the sport. It's also the guy that's never ready to make a save at the start of a game and got chased out of the first game after a 2-week break in the first period after allowing 5 goals. He's nowhere to be found after the game. Mika, hey, he at least talked to the media, but it's more quotes from him that you would swear were AI generated. It doesn't, he just goes up there and just says words until he's allowed to leave. There's just no substance. There's just no oomph behind anything that he ever says. And that's another reason why I think Rangers are so fed up with this core and Mika Zibanejad specifically, to say nothing of his just completely lackluster play. No discipline whatsoever. There's no discipline for this team. You get a golden chance for the Sabres right in the first 20 seconds of the second period. This is after you've just allowed 5 goals in the first period. It goes back the other way, and Riley Smith takes a double minor for a high stick, 4-minute penalty. He's in the box. That's how you start the second period after playing what was your worst period of the season to date. Just one example. There's plenty of others, but that's one that I wanted to point out here. They also remind us that they are a team that is thoroughly asleep in all the biggest parts of the game. The shift following a goal, they're always asleep for that. That was the case in this one as well. They're asleep at the start of periods. They're asleep at the end of periods. We saw that rear its ugly head throughout this game additionally. The end of the first period. I mean, look, the first period was terrible. Don't get me wrong. But they could have very easily gotten into the locker room still just down 2-0. And I guess, at least in theory, have a chance of coming back. And they give up 3 goals in the last 4 minutes or whatever it was there, last 5 minutes. I don't remember exactly, but you get the idea. This team falls asleep in all the big parts of the game. They fall asleep in the shift that follows a goal. That goes back to even last season. Nobody ever corrects it. There's no line that ever steps up and says, we're going to be the go-to line that you need to put on the ice after a goal is allowed or after we score a goal, whatever it might be. Nobody ever steps up in that role either. There's a team that can't win a 50-50 puck. Ask Adam Fox about that, especially on that goal that Buffalo scored, their 3rd goal of the game. We're going to break that one down in greater detail in a little bit. And don't worry, we're going to pull no punches. I mean, we're not pulling any punches with anybody, but certainly not with Adam Fox or Igor Shesterkin. We will get there. They've also reminded us that they are a team, I would say more so than any team in the NHL, that has just an embarrassing amount of games where they just do not show up. Just low effort, low energy games. The Rangers after the game are talking about, just a lack of execution. Well, yeah, that's part of it. But how about show up and show some effort and show some fire? That's step one. And Laviolette called them out on that after the game. And he's not blameless either. But to me, I'm not going to continue putting everything that goes wrong with the Rangers on the coaches. Everybody wanted to do that with Alain Vigneault, who took the Rangers to the Stanley Cup final. Everybody wanted to do that with David Quinn, who he had his flaws, clearly, but he was also coaching a very young, inexperienced, and rebuilding team. Everybody wanted to blame Quinn. Everybody wanted to blame Gerard Gallant, who took a rebuilding team to the conference final in his first season as a head coach. Everybody now wants to blame Peter Laviolette, who did the same thing. They weren't really a rebuilding team, but you get the idea. He took them to the conference final. I'm not going to just keep putting it on the coaches. At a certain point, it's the players. So Laviolette's not blameless, clearly, but I am going to stick with this. It's more on the players than it is on the coaching staff. What else? I covered the periods, and they start terribly. They end terribly. It's a team that does everything slow. The Rangers are so slow, and I'm not just talking about like straight line skating speed or anything like that. I mean, yes, that too, but they're slow skaters for the most part. You got a couple guys that I guess in theory can move, although I didn't see much of that in this game. And Adam Edstrom, the 4th liner, is actually, I would say, probably their fastest skater, and he's obviously not available. But they skate slow. They react to things slow. They're slow on the forecheck. They're slow on the back check. They're slow. I pointed this out a couple of episodes back, right before the break there. They're slow when it comes to changing on the fly. These guys, when they get close to the bench, they just drift. And it's one thing if you're just completely gassed from like a 2-minute and 30-second shift, one of those shifts where you just can't get off the ice. I can at least understand that. But they always do that. If they've been on the ice for 30 seconds, you got guys just, this is how fast they move on the way to the bench for anybody watching on YouTube right now. That's how fast they move. It's just pathetic. This team is just so slow in every aspect of the game. Physicality is just completely lacking. Did anybody throw a check in this game? I've got the box score open here. I want to see how many hits the Rangers were credited with. And this can always be a little bit finicky because, what exactly constitutes a hit. Now, per NHL.com, they only got out hit 29-28 in this game, but I don't know, man. I wasn't seeing a whole lot of physicality from this game, especially early. And really, that's all that matters. All that really matters in this game, as far as how everything went down, is what happened in the first period. Because by then, it was 5-0. The game was over anyway. So who cares if you collect a couple of hits at the end of the second period, the beginning of the third period, whatever it might be. So they've reminded us of all these things. They've also reminded us that it's a team that is thoroughly unwilling to shoot the puck. I think there was a time in this game where the Sabres had as many goals as the Rangers had shots on goal. They just don't shoot the puck. At a certain point, just throw it at the net. I mean, let's get things going a little bit here. Let's get their goalie tested at least a little bit. Oh my God, just brutal. What else? I mentioned the leadership group. There's no accountability. Everybody after the game, like Panarin, I mean, again, at least he faced the music. At least he talked to the media. But he's talking about like, yeah, we didn't see this coming. You didn't? I mean, I don't think most Ranger fans saw it going down the way that it did. But is anybody actually surprised by this at this point? You know, last season, we'd all be thoroughly shocked by an effort like this, especially against a team like the Sabres. This year, I mean, who's at all surprised by this? So there's all that. The other thing, too, is like all these guys, all these players that did not participate in the Four Nations, which is the majority of the team, they were all talking about like, oh, yeah, you know, it's good to get away for a couple of weeks and just kind of have a mental reset and get ready to go here. Look, they can do what they want. They've got 2 weeks off. By all means, you know what? Do what you got to do. Go back home, go on vacation, clear your head, do whatever you got to do to make sure you're ready to come back and prepared to play hockey. These guys were still on vacation. They might have physically been in the building last night because, you know, contractual obligations say that you have to be there or else you don't get paid. But I think some of these guys were still on vacation in their minds. Contrast that with the Sabres. You know, the Sabres came into this game having won 4 out of 5, so clearly they're playing better. There was a video making its rounds on social media where, you know, the Sabres were at practice and they were being run roughshod during practice, you know, doing all these skating drills. And I guess a bunch of them all started quoting Miracle together and having some fun with that. But it looked like a really spirited, really energetic practice. And I saw that and I said, uh-oh, that's where we're at with this team. All that happened was I saw a clip of the Sabres in practice, working hard and having some fun and seeming loose and ready to go for the Ranger game. And I think we're in trouble. We're in trouble because we're about to play the worst team in the Eastern Conference, at least record-wise. That's where we're at with the Rangers. All it took was that video for me to think, oh boy, we might not be in for a very good time here when the Rangers play Buffalo coming out of this break here. You know, and a lot of people are going to fixate too on like the idea that, oh my God, they lost to the Sabres. That part doesn't even bother me that much. Doesn't help. Because again, record-wise, they are the worst team in the Eastern Conference. Although just looking at last night, they might have a new challenger for worst team in the Eastern Conference. But it doesn't bother me because it's still a professional hockey team. They're going to have some good games from time to time. They've played better recently. The fact that they lost to the Sabres, like that's like the 15th thing that bothers me about this game. And I went through a whole bunch of the reasons already. We're going to continue to dive a little bit deeper here. In just a second, I want to shift our attention to two of the biggest issues in this game last night, Adam Fox and Igor Shesterkin. We're going to talk about both of them in just a second. Do not go anywhere because we are certainly not going to pull any punches. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that is both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats that help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It is the perfect grab and go snack for those busy days. Whether you're running between meetings or dropping off the kids, wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as you do. Get snacking and get crackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, let's go keep everything rolling here. Unlocked on New York Rangers. Huge shout out to the everydayers, as always, for just enduring this brutal brand of Ranger hockey that we're seeing this season. In our next episode, gonna go ahead and break down whatever happens between the Rangers and the Penguins. That happens in like about 5.5 hours from now, give or take. It's obviously Sunday morning as I'm recording this, so God help us all. The Rangers are about to play hockey again. But for right now, let's go ahead and talk about this debacle of a game last night, and more specifically, the leadership group. You know, what do you guys think was said in the Ranger locker room before this game, during this game, and specifically during the first intermission, after that just wonderful first period that the Rangers had, and then after this game? Are guys mad? Are guys angry? Is anybody showing any fire? Is anybody throwing anything in there? Do they talk to each other? Do they look at each other? It's at the point where, like, I don't know how these guys look at each other when they're constantly giving efforts like this. And again, a game like this, it can happen to anybody. Whoever wins the Stanley Cup this season is going to have a game. Maybe like the goal differential won't be this bad where they lose 8-2, but they will have a game or 2 games or 3 games where they just don't show up, can't get anything going, and just have a brutal evening of hockey. It does happen to even the best teams in the world. I understand that. But there have been like at least 10 games like this season for the Rangers. That's a minimum. Games where they just don't show up. Games where there's just no effort. Games where there's clearly no leadership, no fight, no energy, nothing. What do these guys say? What do they say to each other before games? What is the mood in that locker room like? Does anybody talk to each other? Do they fire each other up? Hey, come on, man. Need a big game out of you tonight. Let's go. Let's pick it up. Hey, we're in a playoff chase. We gotta figure out a way. You know, the message from the leaders, if you can even call them that, but whoever's, supposedly leading this team right now, the message should be coming out of this break, during practice, before this game, make the speech whenever you want to make it, whenever you think it would be best for the team. But you got to drive home this idea of, okay, hasn't gone our way this season. We got 20-something games to make it right. Every game is a playoff game from this point forward. And that's the mentality that the Rangers need to have. That's the mentality that all these teams in the Eastern Conference wildcard race need to have right now, because there are so many teams, as we've talked about, so bunched together that you can't afford nights like this. You can't afford losses like this. You got to treat every game like your season is on the line, because it basically is. I mean, that's only a slight exaggeration. If you go through another even short losing streak here, like if the Rangers lose 3 in a row coming out of the break here, it's over. They're not coming back from that, especially if they play like this. But just looking at it from a pure standings perspective, by then, it'll be too late. These teams, because you've got all these teams bunched together trying to win these wildcard spots. Some of these teams are going to win this night and that night and the other night. Some of these teams might even get hot. And if that happens, you're going to be dead and buried in the playoff chase before you can even blink, before you even know what happens. So that should be the message that's being driven home by these leaders. Do they do that? Maybe they do. I mean, who knows? Maybe there was a huge rah-rah speech at practice. Maybe there was a huge rah-rah speech before this game. Maybe somebody in the first period was in there breaking sticks and yelling and screaming and pull your head out of your you-know-what and let's get going. But there's just no evidence of that. When you watch these guys on the ice, and we don't see everything, but what we do see is a team that's just lethargic, just going through the motions until somebody tells them they can go home. And that falls on all the leaders for not stepping up and not doing their jobs and not making sure that these guys are ready to go. And I'm not excusing any of the young players, because it's not like they've been good either, but you see what's happening here. The leaders are not taking any accountability. They're not leading the team. And you see all these young players just basically tailing off as the season goes on here. What happened to Will Cooley? He was off to a phenomenal start to the season. Where's Will Cooley been the last month or however long we want to go back here? Alexis Lafreniere is another one. He's kind of like a tweener as far as do we put him in the young player group? He is still young. Do we put him in the veteran group because now he got paid and he's showed what he can do last season at the start of this season? Then he signs his contract and disappears. But what happened to those guys? They're not being led. They did say that Peter Laviolette had a team meeting the night before this game. Well, a heck of a lot of good that did. I would love to have been just a fly on the wall just to see what was said there, see what the message was. Did any of the players step up? Did any of the players back up their coach? Do they just stand there with blank expressions on their faces? Or do they get fired up and try to rally the troops a little bit? I would love to know. I mean, there's no way of knowing. But Peter Laviolette, again, he's not blameless. He ends up, throwing his lines in a blender at the start of this game, like 6 minutes out of the Four Nations face-off. He's got 2 weeks to figure out what lines he wants to go with for the start of this stretch run, this all-important stretch run for the Rangers, and he changes them like 5 or 6 minutes into the next game. I can't even say that I entirely blame him, because the way the Rangers started this game was so bad that maybe you just feel like you have to try something different. And I don't think it was really 5 or 6 minutes, but it couldn't have been much more than like 10 or 12 minutes into this game when he, changed the lines. So I don't know. I mean, that's a reflection on, a team that's just not ready to go, where your coach has to make changes that dramatic, that early into the return game after a 2-week break. Not a good look for anybody. But you know what? I've beat it around the bush long enough here. Let's go ahead and talk about Adam Fox. I want to talk specifically about something that happened in this game. It was actually sort of between the whistles. But in general, I mean, let's just start with the big picture for Adam Fox here. he was as bad in this game as he was for pretty much the entire Four Nations face-off. I think that's something that we got to get out of the way here right now. Now, is it possible that Adam Fox is still affected by his multiple leg injuries that he had last year? He had the collision with Aho at the start of last season, and he obviously missed some time there. And then we get to the playoffs, and he's got a collision with the Capitals as well. So is he still messed up from that? Has that kind of sapped his mobility? He just can't be the same player that he was. I hope that's not the case. But I'll at least acknowledge that possibility that maybe his recent poor play has something to do with that. But it doesn't excuse a complete absence of competitive fire. Case in point, second period, I think it was 5-1 at this point. The Rangers had gotten one back. You've got a situation where Ryan Lindgren is in the defensive zone. He's getting the puck. He's kind of toward the corner there. And the Sabre bears down on him, crashes into him, cross-checks him from behind, right into the boards. What is the response from Adam Fox on this play? He goes over there and gives the guy basically a quick love tap or two, and then just stops. He wants no part of this. He wants no part of the dirty aspects of hockey. He wants no parts of the physical game of hockey. And that's his best friend, right? Aren't these two like super close? These two used to be roommates. There was like an article written. These two were living together, early in their careers. I imagine they both have their own places by now. But, playing video games together and just being really close on and off the ice. And they've been defense partners on the ice for half a decade, basically since they both first came up. They've been through all the highs, all the lows of Ranger hockey that we've seen over the last half decade here together. And this is your response to somebody just absolutely tattooing your best friend from behind, this guy that you've been through all these battles with from behind. Imagine if the roles were reversed here. Imagine if somebody did this to Adam Fox, what Ryan Lindgren's response would have been to such a play. And look, Ryan Lindgren has not been good this season. He's been one of my favorite players over the last, half decade here, basically ever since he came up. He's been one of my favorite players. But I can acknowledge that he has not been good this season. If somebody did that to Adam Fox, Ryan Lindgren is going off. Ryan Lindgren is attacking whoever committed this hit on Adam Fox. He's going right after him. He's not messing around. He's probably dropping the gloves. We saw Ryan Lindgren in the preseason. Somebody bumped into Filipino. There was a little bit of a collision at center ice, and Lindgren basically attacks the guy, fights him, gets his jaw broken, has to wear the fishbowl, and misses a whole chunk of games to start the season, has to wear the fishbowl when he comes back, and probably cost himself millions of dollars doing that, if we're being honest, because he's going to be a UFA after the season. That clearly has affected his play, and whatever contract he was going to get, it's not as long and it's not for as much money as it would have been had that whole thing not happened. And you know what? If that happened to Adam Fox in that game, Ryan Lindgren would have done the same exact thing. And Adam Fox, that's his response to what happens to Ryan Lindgren. Awful. Awful. Can't defend it. That was worse than anything that we saw like during the play was Adam Fox's response to what happened to Ryan Lindgren here. Just unacceptable. And to be fair, there were other Rangers on the ice too. None of them did anything either. But Adam Fox had a front row seat for this. He saw it happen. That's his best friend out there, and he doesn't even respond to it. Basically zero response from Adam Fox in this situation. Not to mention the fact that maybe you get your team going a little bit. You do wear a letter, Adam. You've got an A on your jersey. Alternate captain. Isn't it up to you? I'm not saying he even has to fight. He doesn't have to drop the gloves. But do something. Go after him with some aggression. Doesn't happen. We're going to keep everything rolling just a second. We got to get to Igor Shesterkin. I'm also going to make a brief case for why I think the Rangers should pretty much just sell right now. From what we saw last night, there's no reason to wait. We'll get to all that stuff in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there is no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. BA. Okay, let's go ahead and wrap up today by talking about Igor and then also why the Rangers need to sell. Let's really break down Igor's evening here, okay? Because there's Igor defenders, and I've been there. There's been games this season where I think he's been absolutely hung out to dry, gotten zero help, and then there's certain goals he's allowed where I don't think prime Dominic Hasek is going to make the save, right? So let's acknowledge that first and foremost. And certainly in this game, the Rangers did not defend well, and there were times where they could have helped him a little bit more than they did. But this idea among certain fans that he's like completely blameless after a night like this is borderline insane. I respect everybody's opinion, but I don't know how you can come away from that game last night with that conclusion that Igor had no blame in this whatsoever. First of all, we got the Igor special on the first goal of the game, which predictably happens right at the start of the game. And why does it happen early in the game? Because this guy is never ready to make a save when the game starts. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know how at a certain point he doesn't self-correct. Again, he's not a robot. I get it. Any goalie on the planet can let in a goal in the first minute or two of the game. Any goalie on the planet on any certain night just doesn't have it. They let in a soft goal in the first minute or two. It can happen. It does happen. It will happen to everybody that ever puts on the goalie pads. I understand that. This happens constantly with Igor Shesterkin, and he's supposed to be the best goalie in the world. He's about to be paid like it. He's about to be paid more money than we've ever seen a goalie make in the NHL. He is never ready to make a save when the game starts. What does he think? It's a warm-up? We get a goal here from Jack Quinn. It makes it 1-0 in favor of the Sabres. And yes, there was a brutal turnover on this play, so we'll acknowledge that too. Keandre Miller, I'm shocked to see Keandre Miller and Mika Zibanejad in the middle of this, but believe it or not, they were. Keandre Miller tries to make a pass up the boards to Mika Zibanejad, right? Mika's not looking for it. He's just kind of like zipping up the ice. He's kind of in his own world up there. Not really sure what happened. I think this is more on Miller than it is on Mika, but that's the bottom line. They can't connect on this pass here. It doesn't look like Mika was even looking for it. And now you've got the Sabres holding the puck in the Rangers zone, and they've got a very, fast developing 2-on-1 situation here. So Quinn goes in, and basically he takes the shot, but he shanked his shot. Like he got maybe at best, I would say 25% of, what he presumably can do with his shot in this situation. Still got right through Igor, right into the net. Guy's never ready to make a save at the start of a game. He's never ready. It's been like this all season. By the way, good time also to point out the fact that Keandre Miller wants a significant raise after this season. Just throwing that out there. Second goal. This one, I guess of the 5 goals that Igor allowed, this was the least egregious. But you've got the Sabres swarming in the Ranger zone. Schneider didn't have his stick, so obviously that didn't help matters at all. But then you've got Greenway taking a shot from the blue line, and it deflects into the net. Now, it was a deflection. So I guess we'll cut Igor a little bit of a break on this one, but I don't know. This shot came from a mile away. Deflections are always tricky, but I wouldn't say that this was completely unstoppable either. But if I'm going to give a pass to Igor on any of these goals, I think this would probably be the one. Then we've got this one. I mentioned, Fox and Igor to me were the two, and you might have somebody that you would put right up there with them. But to me, watching this game last night, based on their reputations, based on their expectations, based on their cap hits, Fox and Igor, to me, were the biggest offenders for the Rangers in this game, and they teamed up for a doozy of a goal for the Buffalo Sabres here. So Adam Fox basically just got taken to school by Tage Thompson. By the way, does anybody think that Chris Kreider should have been on the Four Nations face-off team instead of Tage Thompson? I know some people were throwing that out there. Imagine Kreider scoring a goal. I couldn't even say that with a straight face. Imagine Chris Kreider scoring a goal like the one that Tage Thompson scored here. It's not going to happen. So basically, the puck is in the corner. You've got Lindgren and Thompson battling for the puck. Thompson wins the battle because, yes, Lindgren kind of falls down while he's trying to get the puck. And then Adam Fox comes over there for support. And Thompson just goes right to the front of the Ranger net like Adam Fox isn't even there. Thompson could not even be bothered to acknowledge the existence of Adam Fox on this play. He just made a beeline straight for the net. Fox couldn't do anything. And something that I think a lot of people missed here, the referee's arm went up. So Adam Fox was about to be called for a penalty here. And obviously it didn't happen because the Sabres ended up scoring. But even by taking a penalty, Adam Fox could do nothing to slow down Tage Thompson on his way to the front of the Ranger net. So he gets there. But then, Thompson gets there and he just puts it right through Igor Shesterkin. Yeah, okay, bad defense. But can Igor make a save here? This wasn't like a blistering shot. The guy basically just pushed the puck right through Igor Shesterkin. I think he might have 5-holed him, but regardless, this puck can't go in here, regardless of how bad of a defensive play it was by Adam Fox. So that was absolutely brutal. But then it's 4-0. This one was absolutely awful by Igor. This one, offensive zone faceoff for the Sabres, right? They win the faceoff and they take a shot. Igor, during this entire sequence, is standing straight up. You can maybe get away with this when the puck is in Buffalo's zone. Goalies, you'll see them stand straight up and probably get a little bit of a breather while they can, while the puck's not anywhere near them. Igor's just standing straight up like a statue. I don't know if he wasn't expecting a shot, but the shot comes, and I don't know that I've ever seen a goalie so unprepared to make a save as I saw Igor here. He basically just falls forward, and the puck goes right by him, and it's 4-0. And then you've got Sam and Joe, and they're awesome, but they're talking about Igor hasn't gotten a whole lot of help. And no, he hasn't, but how about make a save? What were the Rangers supposed to do on this? I mean, I guess they could have won the faceoff, but once Buffalo had the puck, nobody did anything egregiously wrong on the Rangers on this play. The goal went right through Igor. He's not ready to make a save. Then it's 5-0. Buffalo scores on a power play. Shot just goes right through everybody, especially Igor, goes into the net, and that was enough. And Jonathan Quick goes out there, and it was already 5-0. And by this point, the game is completely out of hand. Steve Valiquette, with his clear sight analytics, he mentioned that, or rather, he showed. I think he tweeted this out during the first intermission, because he does this thing where he keeps track of high danger chances, medium danger chances, low danger chances, and comes up with an expected goals scored for both teams. He does that every game, but he actually shared his numbers for just the first period only. The Sabres, after the first period, had an expected goals total of 2.14. Igor allowed 5 goals. Can't put everything on the defense. Best goalie in the world, highest paid goalie in the world. You got to make some saves. He didn't do that. So you know what? I'm realizing we kind of went long here. I mean, can you blame me with everything going wrong in this game and these Rangers players just falling all over each other and embarrassing themselves? Went a little long. I'm going to save our discussion about why the Rangers need to sell now for after this game against the Penguins. Now, watch the Rangers win this game 6-0 and just leave all of us thoroughly confused. But I think I'm going to stick by that regardless of what happens in the Penguins game. We'll get to that in the next episode. Thank you guys, as always, for joining. If you'd like to get in touch with us, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. And definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @jchick17. Once again, that is @JCHIK17. Thank you guys, as always, for tuning in, and I will see you next time.